going to kill us. I was stopping for gas along the highway. I never even saw him coming. He's crazy. We're all going to die. We're all going to die.
Hello and welcome to Control-Alt-Death. I am Ben Monster.
And I am the Tiger King.
Oh no. No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
You don't want to be the Tiger King.
No, I don't. I really don't. It's terrible. He's terrible. Everything's terrible.
The whole show is just a terrible mess.
Yeah, last week we talked about, instead of doing the horror podcast, we were going to do an Animal Crossing podcast exclusively.
Right.
And now I think we need to not do an Animal Crossing podcast, but we need to do a Tiger King podcast, because that's all I'm thinking about. And I want to talk about it 24/7 because Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Oh boy. So today's episode is we're going to talk about Tourist Trap.
Yes.
But before we get into that amazing movie, we will talk about what we've been watching, how we're doing, and all that jazz. So what's up, Gabe? How's everything doing? What are you doing?
Everything's
what
doing.
Everything's
fine, just fine. Like I said, been watching Tiger King, which, if anyone doesn't know, it's a Netflix documentary. Mm-hmm. What it's about, oh man, I don't even know where to start. It's a crazy documentary about this guy who runs a big cat zoo habitat, whatever you want to call it, and he's a nutcase, and there's a woman in Florida who runs her own sanctuary, and she's a nutcase, and everyone's crazy, and the story every episode gets crazier and crazier and crazier. I think I'm on episode 5, and every time I watch it, I'm like, it cannot get any crazier, and then it does.
It does. It tops itself. Each episode gets crazier and crazier.
Yes.
As it goes on. And yeah, we are, I believe, on episode 4. It's insane.
It's crazy.
It's an insane show.
It really is. Yeah, it's pretty much all I've been watching this past week. Because that's all I want to watch. Yeah, still going through Kenny and Spinny, which is always great, but yeah, nothing new in the movie department this week.
Still playing that Animal Crossing?
Oh yeah. We just hit 10 days, I think, from when it first came out. So I haven't looked at my hours played yet, but I'm kind of scared to see how many hours I played on the Switch, because it's been a lot. What about you?
You're not cheating, are you? Or you're not time traveling?
No. I'm not a piece of shit. So
there is time traveling. It's not part of the game, but you can do it. You can switch your system clock to a future date or a past date and time travel back and forth.
Yeah, but I was reading that because the way they're going to be handling like future events, so like Christmas and Halloween, if you were to go that far, because they're doing it via DLC, that you're not going to get all that stuff. So like it may be like snowy if you go all the way into winter, but you're not going to get all the Christmas stuff because that's not even in the game yet. So it's interesting.
Gotcha. Well, Easter or Bunny Day is coming up, I believe.
Right.
April 1st. So
can't wait.
That's something to look forward to. I also have been watching Tiger King. I've been also watching episodes of the 1970s show Shazam.
Nice.
And loving every second of it. Except I just finished season 1, and in season 2 they changed the actor who plays Captain Marvel, and didn't like that.
There's a big change.
Yeah. there was something very special, very methy about the first guy who played.
Did you say meth? Methy?
Methy, yeah.
Oh,
he
okay.
looks like he can't open his mouth all the way. Like he's, I don't know. There's something weird about him. But yeah, it's just not the same.
That's too bad.
Yeah, I was introduced to the show by two friends, Matt and Maris, and I absolutely love it. It's a weird show because it's in the 70s. It's very educational, meaning it teaches you morals at the like every episode. There's a situation that has to be solved by Captain Marvel and Billy and Mentor, but it's always like, hey, don't break the law, because it hurts you and the people around you. And there's always a message at the end that Captain Marvel comes in and says, hey, how's it going? Remember, don't do drugs.
Sure.
Like stuff like that. And
yeah, I gotta watch it. You've been telling me bits and pieces about it, and it sounds amazing.
It's
amazing.
Awesome. I love it so much. My cat just walked across the keyboard, so everything is okay though.
Okay, thank God.
So yeah, you want to get into it?
Let's do it.
You want to get into this masterpiece of a movie?
I can't wait. So, spoiler free, what'd you think?
Spoiler free. This movie was awesome.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, it was.
I loved it. I could watch this movie again.
Yes.
Right now.
Me too.
It's that type of movie I want to show it to people because I don't know how this movie is not popular. It's not a popular movie, right?
No, not at all.
I don't think it's made a must-see B-movie list or anything like that. It's so good. It's so weird.
It's so weird.
Bizarre.
I think if this had came out before Texas Chainsaw, that maybe this would be on the level of a Texas Chainsaw.
It totally has those vibes.
It has those, yeah, and it definitely does. And I think it was clearly inspired by it quite a bit, at the very least, of the way that the main villain looks. But I do think that. So I also loved it, same as you. I love it. I could watch it again today. I do think it is super creepy and pretty scary, actually. But it also gets into really goofy, campy stuff a lot. And I think that's maybe why it's not as big as it probably could have been. Yeah. So that's, but yeah, through and through, I really enjoyed it. I really loved it. I don't think I've even ever heard or seen this poster of this movie until we started making our list for stuff we wanted to watch. And yeah, I'm really happy we watched it.
I was legit, in the beginning, creeped out by it. Then, I'm not going to say it has bad special effects, but it's definitely from its time, and it doesn't have bad special effects, but it's special effects of that era, and that lends to the campiness and silliness. I don't think it was kind of meant to be campy or silly, but I was telling you, if they remade this movie with decent special effects or special effects now, this would be a super creepy movie.
Oh yeah.
And I loved it.
The story is there, the characters are there, the world is there. It's ripe for a remake, and I can't believe it hasn't happened yet. It's right. It would be so scary to do this now and make it super dark and super grounded and gritty and creepy. I would love that so much. So hopefully one of these days it gets made.
Yeah, maybe we can remake it.
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
think?
Let's do it.
I mean, this could definitely be like a low budget. Like you can make this a low budget film,
Yes,
and
for sure.
still make it creepy and cool.
Yeah, talking about the special effects, I think they did a good job for what they tried to do. Like, you know, in Texas Chainsaw, we're watching that show, The Core, and they talk about how they don't really show a lot of violence on screen. Like, it's all like behind stuff or kind of implied, and it really works for that. And this, they kind of do similar stuff. They do show a little bit more, but there's no effects that, you know, like in Velocipastor when they rip the guy's head off, you can tell that's a fake head. They're able to kind of get around that level of like silliness where things happen, and like there's one scene really early in the beginning where a guy gets stabbed with a metal tube, and like it goes in his back, and then it like drips out. I'm like, oh, that's really cool, and it actually looked pretty decent. So I was actually surprised that the effects weren't horrible. They were just very much of the time of a cheap horror movie in 1979 or whenever they shot this.
Right. I think what kind of like the main idea of it is this guy, he's converting people into mannequins. So the or like animatronic mannequin things. I don't know.
We'll get into that.
But I think with special effects wise, like there are definitely some parts where real people are hiding within these like tons of mannequins, and I guess we were supposed to think that these mannequins looked like real people, like wax figures, but they obviously just look like mannequins. Yeah. So like if you made it today and you made the special effects look like these mannequins look like real wax figures or real people,
it'd be terrifying.
Yeah.
With that, like there are scenes in this where, like you said, they're showing a room and it's full of mannequins, and there's parts where like it's clearly a mannequin face, but their eyes are real and they move. Yes. And I was like, that's crazy, because like how did you do that? Is that just someone wearing a mask? Because that's a real. Those are real eyes. That's a real person's eyes on a real mannequin. So like, is that someone wearing a mask? And then I think with we'll get into the people mixed in thing, because I do have a theory about that, but we'll get to that when we get to it. So, I think we both really liked it. I would definitely recommend it if you're a fan of Texas Chainsaw and weird, creepy Hills Have Eyes type of horror. I would definitely recommend this if you haven't seen it. Okay, so you want to get into the actual plot?
Get into the main plot. And
so first we have to watch 25 minutes of opening credits.
Oh my God, yes, yeah.
Thank God we're past that time, because I hate it.
Now, I have a question about that. Like, was that a rule for like movies to do that in the beginning?
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
I think
and George Lucas was like one of the first ones to like break that rule.
I believe so, because he didn't want to start off the movie being bored, you know.
Right.
So we open with a man kicking a tire down a road, and it's very hot, and he's drinking water, and he's out of water, and that's that whole scene. I don't remember this guy's name because he's not in it for very long.
I kind of want to say it's like Doug or... Nah, I don't remember.
Davey, maybe?
No, Davey is the brother.
Oh, that's right.
Of what's his name?
Yeah.
Of the old man. Yeah.
One of these generic dudes. We cut to a car that's broken down on the side of the road, and this guy's girlfriend, I think, is kind of sitting there waiting.
I think so. Yeah.
3 other people pull up in a Jeep, and they're like, "What's going on?" And they say that this dude went out to try to get the Woody. It's Woody. That's
Woody. Yes. How can we forget?
So Buzz is out there trying to get a new tire, and he is just gone. So this other dude and two other women pull up and like, hey, come with us.
Right.
Woody is rolling this tire, and he comes up to a very creepy abandoned gas station, and he walks in and he wants to get a drink.
Yeah, I believe the sign said "Gas Eats"
Yes,
on the gas station.
It's very weird. And he goes in and he stands at the bar, and he's trying to get a drink, or he's trying to get service, and no one's there. And he hears some like mumbling coming from the back. So Woody goes into this back room, and he sees a woman lying on a bed and kind of making weird noises. He walks in, tries to wake her up, and surprise, it's a mannequin. And this mannequin kind of pops up and is laughing. The door behind him closes, and a window opens, and he's like, what? And he goes and he tries to go through the window. The window slams shut as he gets to it. And then all hell breaks loose in this room. Doors are opening and closing. Mannequins are popping out of the closet. Creepy masks are coming out. He's trying to break down the door with like a broom handle or something.
It reminded me a lot. Yeah, it reminded me a lot of Evil Dead, where I think he's like hallucinating, or maybe not. Everything in the room starts moving and coming to life. And
right. Yeah.
Like that deer.
There's
head
there's a cabinet that opens, and like all of everything in there is flying at him.
Yes.
There's a big like sword that comes out, and he's like, oh god, and it comes and it stabs like the wall next to him. The whole time there's this mannequin, like this really creepy mannequin head, just laughing at him, and it's really scary. And then a pipe falls on the ground, and that starts like
rattling.
Starts rattling, and then it just shoots right into his side.
Well, before that, he tries to bust open the door, right? And his arm gets either stuck or someone behind the door is holding his arm. I think he says "let go" at one point.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he breaks a tiny hole or an arm-sized hole in the door, and he sticks his hand in and try to open it, I think, from the other side.
Right.
And he's stuck. We don't know. We don't see what's on the other side, but he's stuck.
Right.
But he does say, let me go, let me go. Yeah. So now he's stuck right in this spot, and that's when all the things start flying at him.
Right.
This pipe comes and just jams him right in the side, and you hear drip, 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 and it kind of zooms down, and you see blood.
Yeah.
And he does, I don't know if I love this or hate it, but he does this silent scream.
Yeah. It was
weird.
It was very, very creepy. This was the scene that like creeped me out like a lot.
Yeah.
The mannequin face was kind of lame and weird looking, but everything else, just like a room attacking you, doesn't sound very scary, but it was weird, and
it was very weird,
scary. There's also not, if I'm remembering correctly, there's not a soundtrack that's happening, is there?
I don't know about this scene. There is you mean in this scene alone, or the movie?
In this scene.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's just the chaos happening.
And then there's that silent break where he gets jabbed with that pipe, and it's so weird.
Yeah. The screen, his reaction to it, I think, is amazing because it's quiet. He like at first I thought it was like slow mo and there was like no sound, but he's just doing a silent. His mouth is open in agony.
Yeah.
And then you hear like weird mutter. Someone is like muttering to themselves outside. You don't see who it is, and you just like, so it's just like that.
That's a good impression.
And then we go back to these four people in the car. Jerry is the man in the leather vest, which is awesome. He's rocking that leather vest.
Nice.
And he is driving, and the car, the Jeep is having some car trouble, of course.
Right. We got
so
Jerry,
they go up.
Becky, Molly, and I don't remember the other one.
Eileen.
Okay.
Eileen. So they see a sign that says Slosson's Lost Oasis, just ahead. So they're like, let's go there. So they go there, and they talk about how all these tourist traps are just, they say that's going to be a lot, but once they get there, it's nothing.
Right.
They see the tire on. They see the tire that Buzz was pushing along the road, and like, oh, he must be here.
Right.
So they pull up to this. Yeah.
Well, their car starts to sputter, right, and not work.
Yeah. So they're having car trouble, and before they get to the oasis, they kind of break down next to this on the side of the road, pretty much. So Jerry gets out, and he's trying to fix the car. The three women decide to kind of wander into the woods, and they find this little like pond and a waterfall, and it's like this really nice little spot. And
the best thing to do, yeah, right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
the thing that anyone would do is in this weird place is to get naked and
go swimming.
Great, perfect. So they did that, and Molly, she's very, I guess I would describe her as conservative.
Yeah, Molly is the I think the one with a good head on her shoulders.
Yeah.
And is kind of iffy, I think, about going into the pond, but does it anyway. Gets naked like everyone else.
The other women are dressed very much like crop tops and really short shorts, and it's summer, and she's dressed like in a big dress, and she's very covered, and she has a big hat, and she's very like protective of herself, I think, and she doesn't want to go swimming, but they kind of goad her into it. And as they do, we see a creepy man. He's just an older guy, and he kind of walks up on them, and he's like, howdy, how you guys doing? And he's got a big ass fucking cowboy hat on.
Yes.
And he immediately kind of lasers in on Molly. He's kind of exclusively looking and talking to her. And he has a shotgun, which is not ominous.
Yes.
And he talks about how, so we find out that he is Mr. Slauson, who the guy who owns this oasis. And he talks about how he used to charge people to swim here, and times have changed because of the new highway that was built. So this new highway was built, and now no one stops to go to his oasis to swim here, to stop at his museum and all that.
He used to charge 75 cents.
Yeah.
For you to swim in this pond that we later find out, or no, right then and there, he says water moccasins come out at night and sometimes during the day to get a good spot. So watch out for those snakes.
My question is, what the fuck is a water moccasin?
I believe they're water snakes. I believe.
Okay. Do they wear shoes?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. So this whole thing with the highway being built and ruining this guy's business, very reminiscent of Psycho. Psycho, that whole movie happened because Norman Bates runs that motel. Talk about how the highway was built, and now no one stops there.
No one goes there, right?
And so right off the bat, I'm like, okay, this is going to have some Psycho vibes to it, just in terms of like the concept of how people get to this spot.
Right.
I think there's two other big inspirations for this movie, and we'll get to that once we get to it. But the first one, I think, is definitely Psycho. Which I love because it's one of my favorite movies. So, so they talk about how he's, the car, they're like, the car's broken down. He's like, well, let me see if I can, go help you or whatever.
Right.
So they all kind of, the women head back separately from Mr. Slauson, and they meet up at the car, and they see him standing there, and he's like, hey, come back to my house. I'll get my toolkit, and we can come fix your car, and you guys can hang out.
Right. Because apparently Jerry is a law student and is not a mechanic, as he says, and cannot fix the car.
Yeah, but he is wearing a leather vest, which is great.
He's got that leather vest.
He's got a leather vest and a lot of denim. So you think he would be able to repair a car with denim, but you never know. So we walk into Mr. Slauson's museum, and surprise, it's full of mannequins.
Yes.
And it's a very like a historical museum with different exhibits from different pieces of history, like the Alamo. There's some Native American stuff, Civil War. He's just got a lot of stuff.
Okay, now I have a question before we get any further. I wrote down, what kind of accent does Mr. Slauson have?
Oh, that's a great question.
Because we don't know where this takes place, right?
I don't think so. No.
Because he'll say some stuff, like he talks about his wife that, I'm quoting here, used to make a chili that would make your mouth water. And he says it like that. And I'm like, where is this guy from? There were weird things that he would say that, like, this weird accent would, like, kick in. And for the most part, it sounded like a southern accent. But when he said, make your mouth water, I was like, where is he from?
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that too. I have no idea. I assumed this was all happening in the South.
Yeah.
Because that's where this type of thing would happen. And, maybe he moved there from New York and he's got a little bit of that accent. So they walk into the museum and he hands everyone, very awkwardly, a Dr. Pepper? I think.
No.
Or is it a beer?
I thought it was beer. I thought he gave everyone a beer. But
because the fridge has a giant Dr. Pepper sign on it. So I'm like, is this some weird, like, branding from fucking 1979 or whatever? But whatever.
It was it's like a weird vending machine that he opens up, like he's got the key for. And he opens up. I believe he was giving them beer. But I don't know.
So he gives every single one, and he takes one for himself. And they're just kind of sitting there chatting about who he is and everything. And the women bring up, what are all these mannequins? And Mr. Slauson is like, oh, my brother, he's very, very talented. And he talks about how he started making these, and New York stole him because now he's making mannequins for New York stores. I don't think they ever say what, but he's now in New York, making mannequins, and he was also very good at like machinery and tinkering and contraptions and stuff like that. So right now we're like, oh, maybe he's not actually in New York. Maybe he's still here. We'll get to it later. I have thoughts, but we'll get to it. So right here is when he mentions wax museums. So I think the other huge inspiration for this movie is House of Wax, which has a very similar, very, very, very similar concept, where a dude turns people into wax statues, I guess. So I was interested to see that they actually are saying wax, because that movie the original came out in like the 50s, I think, or 60s. They remade it not recently, but I think in the early 2000s with Paris Hilton.
Yes. Okay. I do remember that movie.
Yeah. She got speared in the head. It was pretty great. They talk about that.
Is this where he shows off one of the mannequins and it's like animatronic?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he flips a little switch and music starts playing, and I think it's a Civil War mannequin. And I think what they really do a good job is that's clearly like a person in a suit with a mannequin face, because it looks like a person, and I think that like it actually looks kind of cool. Yeah. I think it's like General Custer or something, and he lifts up like an old school rifle and he shoots it, and all the girls go and he's like, haha, I got you. And it's like a little show that he puts on. Right. Which will that mannequin come back later in an hour from now? Maybe. Eileen looks out the window and notices a house, and she's like, oh, do you live there? And he's like, no, that's just no one lives there. No one really lives there except for Davy. Just Davy's house. Don't worry about Davy. He's just a wild guy.
And then he says,
oh no, Davy Crockett. That's right. He says, who's Davy? And she goes, oh, Davy Crockett, of course. And then he goes into another whole thing about his mannequins, and he's just a weird dude.
He is. It's very strange.
He grabs his toolkit, and him and Jerry leave to go fix the Jeep.
And this is the part where Eileen goes, you know what? I think it's time for me to visit that house where Davy is. And the other girls are like, no, I think we should stay here, because that's what Mr. Slauson said. And she goes, fuck you.
Nah,
And she
fuck you.
leaves.
I'm bound to. Yeah, he was very adamant to not go out because of the coyotes. And
Right.
probably some serial killer, maybe, but no, just the coyotes. But immediately, the second she's out the door, she leaves. So she walks up to the house and she hears a conversation happening. I think she's still trying to look for Buzz. I think that's maybe why she's wandering around. So she just opens the door and goes in. Of course. And she walks in and there's like a family room and there's these two old-looking mannequins talking to each other. And the old woman is rocking. Really creepy.
Yeah. Yes.
And she starts to hear whispering, and it sounds like Buzz. She starts walking throughout the house, and she hears it again. There's a mannequin that has a red scarf, and she just takes the red scarf and puts it on herself. And this is where we get the shots of all the mannequins' eyes moving, and it looks so good. Like I can't emphasize how like I don't even know if it is a person wearing a mask because they look like mannequin, like the really like thin mannequins, and they just look amazing. I don't know how they did it. And yeah, she jacks that red scarf, and then walks in Davy, right? I guess that's what we're gonna call him.
Yeah.
The man.
Yeah.
The creepy man.
This is when Davy looks like Leatherface a little bit, right? Okay.
Yeah. Well, he always looks like Leatherface with his main mask.
That's
but
true.
This version he has a blonde wig and like a white bucket hat.
Yes.
Is that what Buzz was wearing in the beginning?
I believe so. Yeah.
Let me scroll back. No, he wasn't. He wasn't wearing any of that. Oh no, he was. Yeah. He was wearing that. So he's
like a Gilligan hat, right? Like a
yes,
okay.
exactly.
Yeah, I was confused at this point because I didn't remember what Woody looked like. Mm-hmm. But I guess I because she does mention she thinks it's him, right?
Yeah, because she hears the whispering and she's like, Woody,
right? Yeah,
and so she keeps going into the house. So Davy walks in and he starts like cocking his head and looking around at stuff, and things start happening. So he looks at the window closes. He looks at the mirror breaks. He looks at the chair, and the chair he moves his head and it shoots under her.
Right. We should describe what Davy looks like face wise.
Sure.
It's a full mannequin face except for the lower part where your chin would be and the mouth. It kind of looks like ventriloquist dummy has like those lines,
right?
But it's not like his real mouth is there. It's like another mannequin piece.
Yeah, it's like he took two mannequin pieces and put them together, and the line was like where his mouth is, and it kind of instead of like a Joker smile where the lines his cuts go up, it's like imagine it goes down, and there's like a separate piece.
And you can kind of see
eyes.
You could kind of see his mouth inside there. At some
you can see his mouth, and in this scene in particular, he has his tongue sticking out and he's biting it, which is really weird.
It's so weird.
And the eyes are pitch black. You cannot see anything in the eyes, and that's really scary, really ominous. And then the first headwear that he wears is a blonde wig and kind of shaggy hair, and like we said, a white like Gilligan bucket hat.
Right.
So he's looking all through the room and making all these things happen, and she's not reacting really at all.
No. She's got a weird reaction to all of this, which is like kind of just staying still. Yeah.
So he looks at her neck, and the red scarf that she stole starts to tighten on her neck, and she's kind of like, ugh. And through all of these things happening, we keep cutting to all the mannequins, and they're all watching this happen. Really creepy.
Very creepy.
And we we don't see what happens. It just kind of stops, and we cut back to the museum.
Right.
So now we're with Molly and Becky.
Yes.
And they're talking about it. We should go find her. She's been gone too long. And Molly's like, no, I don't want to go. I'm staying here. I'm a good girl. I'm not going to go out and do that.
Right.
She's kind of playing with the light switches that controls all the animatronics. And she flips one, and this woman mannequin lights up. There's like lights all around her. She's in a special spot. And this really nice music plays, and they go up to her, and she's like, oh, they're talking about her. And Molly touches it because she talks about how it looks so lifelike. And she's like, oh, it feels like flesh, which is weird. It's just a weird way to describe it. But they both touch it, and it's like, oh, it must be some type of special rubber.
Yeah, it was. And when looking at it, it just looks like a regular mannequin. I mean, they didn't really... this is where I was thinking, like, if this was made today, they should do like a proper like wax figure, make it look like. Have you ever been to Madame Tussauds wax museum?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
something like that. Even though when you go there, everything looks real, but then when you look at the pictures that you took, actually, I haven't been there in a really long time. The last time I was there, there were no smartphones, and we took I don't even think there were digital cameras back then. So it was
a Polaroid or something.
Yeah, you get the picture later, and you go, "These look really fake." But like when you're there, they look really real. But anyway, like if they were to remake this, like make them all look like that. And
in the remake of House of Wax, they did this. Like they put. I don't know if they made custom wax figures for the actors and then like mess with those. There's one shot where the dude from Supernatural, the guy who's in the Friday the 13th remake, the super tall guy, he was in it, and he gets made into a figure, and I remember he's at like a piano, and he has like duct tape over his mouth, and this woman pulls the tape off, and it rips off like his skin on that section of his mouth, and you see him like murmuring and crying, like a tear comes down, and it like that's really him in there. Wow. And it looks like a wax figure. So I agree. I think if they could redo it now, it would be something super scary and actually look like a human that was turned into a mannequin.
Yeah.
Mr. Slauson comes back in,
right? And
they're like, "Where's Jerry?" And he's like, "Oh, he drove the truck back to town to do something."
Yeah, he says he drove my truck back to town.
Yeah, drove my truck back to town, and I walked back.
Right, and he sees them next to the figure in the little special place with the lights, and he tells them that this was his wife. His wife died, and he had his brother make a mannequin that looked exactly like her. And
she died of cancer, and he wanted to keep a little bit of her alive, so his brother made this mannequin.
Right.
He asks where Eileen is, and they're like, she went out. And he's like, did you go to the house? And he gets a flashlight and runs out to try and find her. He walks into the house, and in like a back way into a dark hallway that is filled with mannequins. And he's like, Dave, you here?
Right.
And he walks up to. Oh, I guess we cut to that point. And then we're back at the museum, and Molly is kind of flipping through some. Like a photo book, and he sees the picture of his wife there. So Mr. Slauson comes back, and he grabs his shotgun, and he says that he couldn't find her, and he's going to go look for her. And they're like, why do you need a shotgun? Okay, fine, I won't bring my shotgun. And he has a limp, I guess we should say. He has a limp, and he limps out.
And he brings the girls with him, right?
No, so he tells them to stay, and he goes out to look for Eileen. Okay. So, pausing for a moment, we all know it's him, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so is this just because in 1979 that twist is not a big deal,
yeah, it's hard to tell when these tropes like kind of came into place in horror movies, but yeah, I mean, it's obviously
extremely obvious that it's him.
Yeah, if it's not him, he has something to do with it.
Yeah,
like it's I don't know why. Yeah,
it wasn't the whole brother thing. Like I don't know, because you never see them together, and obviously you wouldn't. But I don't think they did so again, going back to Psycho, immediately in the beginning of that movie, you see the mother in the window when you see Norman at the hotel. Now that's a dead body,
right.
But you see a person. Like Alfred Hitchcock fixed this issue in 19 fucking whenever when he made this movie.
Right.
So that's what this movie needed, is we needed to see Mr. Slauson in the museum, and then we needed to see, quote, Davy somewhere else doing something. I mean, they already have it built in. He can animate, or he can make these mannequins move somehow, which we'll get into. But you can have him walking around. You can have two of them in the same spot. So it was very weird that they didn't do that. To really hit it home that it wasn't him.
Also, like, I mean, it's not really clear if Davy is there, because like he does talk about Davy like not being there, like Davy not being in that house, but then he also says that Davy is in the house, but he says it's Davy Crockett. It was confusing. It was definitely confusing, and you're not sure what the characters in the movie are supposed to believe, like why, like, is there a brother in that house? Is what he said about Davy being going to New York, and like it's very confusing.
It's not a good you don't know. If it's you don't know, like there's versions of this where it's like, oh, it's really cool, like no one knows what's going on. Right. But in this, it felt like it just wasn't written as well as it should have been.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, the two. So now we're with Becky and we're with Molly, and they both take a flashlight and they go out to look for Eileen.
Right.
And they go up to the same house. They see a light on, and they hear Eileen kind of giggling, laughing, and Becky is like, "Oh, her and Woody are banging upstairs. They just went into this house and are banging in this random person's home."
Right.
So she's like, "I'm gonna go up there and
scare them.
Scare them." I think.
Yeah. Not sure what she was planning on doing, but yeah, Becky is all about going into the house, and Molly's like, no,
yes,
we need to go back to the other place.
Yeah, definitely.
Becky decides to climb up a trellis and jump through
and does a beanie, and she breaks into the house. she breaks into the, like, it's so weird that I guess if she thinks her friends are in there, maybe it's, if the house is abandoned, it's one thing, but she breaks into the house.
Right.
And she's walking through the house, and this was really funny. So she has a flashlight, and this is a flashlight from 1977, whenever. And like the flashlight is the dimmest, tiniest little piece of light. And it's so funny how like back then that's what a flashlight was. And nowadays, like my phone could light up that entire house. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So like stuff like that's really funny. And she's kind of listening for which room they're in, and she goes into one of these rooms, and it's full of mannequins, and she sees two bumps under the bed, and she thinks that's her friends, and
she lifts the blanket off? Oh.
Yeah, she lifts the blanket off, and it's like a creepy... it's another creepy mannequin, because this whole house is full of creepy mannequins. We see Davy kind of messing with her and kind of walking behind her and not interacting with her yet. At this point now, Davy looks like Eileen. So he has like the big hair. He has
Right.
the red scarf, and now is when I think he looks like Leatherface, like totally, because
Yeah.
he has that same type of.
He's got like a shawl around him too.
Mm-hmm.
That I think.
Becky walks up to the attic and sees who she thinks is Eileen,
Right.
sitting with her back to the door. And we cut to the front of this person, and we see that it's actually Davy's face, and it has the whole Leatherface
Manicky, weird.
manicky.
Yeah.
So he walks up, or she walks up to her, and the mannequin turns and faces her and reaches her arms out and scares her, and then the real Davy pops out from the side and kind of tackles her.
Right.
And it's weird.
Is this the part where a bunch of mannequins fall on top of Becky?
Yes.
Okay.
So she kind of falls to the ground, and the mannequins, I think they're also, this is the first time we hear them singing.
Freaking scary too.
Super scary.
Yeah.
They open their mouth. They're not even singing a song. They're just kind of humming this really like weird angelic tune. It's terrifying. They all kind of like we're shooting on the ground at an upward angle, like toward the ceiling, and they all look down at her, and they all fall on her. And then after they all fall on her, she's covered in scrapes and bruises and stuff.
It
like,
was
wow, that was
crazy.
quick.
Yeah, like she
like,
bruises.
mannequins aren't that heavy.
extremely-
I mean, come on.
Yeah, yeah. It's her, the way she gets bruised. I wrote down Becky attacked by dummies, bruises very easily.
Yeah, super
It
easily.
was very strange.
Yeah, so that happens. She knocks him out with a mannequin arm, but he's not really knocked out, and he's just kind of messing with her, and she gets knocked out, I think, by the mannequins at some point when they're all collapsing on her again, and he carries her down to the basement where there's another woman who is on a table, and Jerry is tied up on the staircase. So Jerry's alive still.
Yeah.
The other woman is Tina. She's on like this operating table type thing, and she has a blanket on her, and she's scared, obviously.
Yeah. And
So
this is
Tina,
where Tina says that they're all gonna die or something like that, or is that like after Davy leaves?
I think that's right here. She talks about how she was stopping at a gas station and he came out of nowhere and we're all gonna die, and she's been here longer than them clearly, and she's freaking out. We cut back to Molly, who's back at the museum, and she's just kind of wandering around looking at stuff, and she flips on the light for the mannequin of the wife, and she does the weirdest thing in this movie, and she walks up and she puts her arm underneath like the mannequin's like shawl, like scarf type thing, and like to see what it looks like on her. Very weird.
Yeah.
Very, very weird.
She's obsessed with this. This is like the third time she's flicked the switch to check out this mannequin.
Check it out.
Yeah.
And even before this, she definitely was, I wouldn't say into Mr. Slauson, but she liked him. And I don't know in what way, but she, like everyone else was just like, oh, he's just the dude. She kind of liked him. She was smiling at him. She was the one who wanted to go. Like, they have a little bit of a connection. And so, we cut back to Davy's makeup room, I guess, and he has a bunch of masks on a wall and a big mirror, and he's applying his new mask and like putting makeup on it and a new wig and a little top hat, and he looks like a butler. He's dressed like a butler now. And
This movie is
so weird.
Fucking weird.
It's so weird. And this is where I think he actually talks for the first time.
Right.
And at first I didn't like it, but then I did come to like it.
Exactly. My first note here is that I said it would be way creepier if he didn't talk. But then later on I say I like the voice. For some reason it grows on you and you're like, okay, this is pretty creepy.
Yeah. he brings down the three people a drink, some sort of alcoholic drink, and he tries to get them all to drink it, and none of them really want to do it, obviously. And he takes the shot like through his mask, and it's gross and creepy. And then he goes over to Tina and uses like leather straps and nails her head down to the table so she can't move.
Right.
And this is where he's going to make her into a... So is he making her... So he puts like plaster on her face.
Yes.
And describes how she's going to feel, how it's going to be cold, and then it's going to get hot, and then she's going to suffocate. It's really scary how he's just very calmly describing it.
Yeah,
I was confused at what he's actually doing.
Yeah, I believe he's slowly applying the plaster to each part of her face. He first goes around, I think, and then he tells her he's going to go over her eyes so she won't be able to see. And then slowly goes on her cheeks and then her mouth. You'll still be able to breathe through your nose. And then he puts it all over her face and says, you're not going to die from suffocating. You're going to die from fright. Your heart is going to beat like crazy and then explode. Yeah. Fucking frightening.
Super scary.
Yeah, so I'm guessing this is the process where he makes you into a mannequin.
So are the mannequins actual people inside them, or are these a cast of their face? That's where I'm always confused on.
Yeah,
or is it kind of just both? Like it's just whatever.
I think it's whatever.
Okay. Okay.
Because like the whole brother situation, like a lot of this is not. I don't want to say it's not written well, but it's not written well. Like there's holes. It doesn't make any sense, but I feel that's almost the charm to this movie is that. There's
they didn't worry about plot.
Yeah, I mean,
let's just go do it. You know,
in a sense, like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, story wise, it's simple, and I don't know, and I think that's why I love that movie, also, and I've rented it a million times from Blockbuster, and then I realized I should just buy this movie. But like there's something about it that it's the creep factor of it. It's this almost could be like a real thing. The acting's weird in both of these movies. There's something about it that makes me really like it, and there are definitely problems with it. But yeah,
it's very much the suspend your disbelief. It's a horror movie. Don't worry about details.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it sucks when I get that movies in general have that, but horror movies specifically have that. And when a horror movie doesn't give into that and they do explain everything perfectly, that's what makes movies really special. Everything else has don't worry about it. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about that. Like, just enjoy it. So there's a lot of that in this movie. And, but like you said, I still think it is special. And I think it has its spot in the alongside of Texas Chainsaw, maybe not alongside, maybe a little bit below her, but still in that realm.
Yeah.
So he kills her and she suffocates or her heart explodes. She's freaking out. Looks really fucked up.
You hear her heart beating, and that was super creepy. You hear it getting faster and faster and faster.
And she's like moving, and then she just stops, and she's dead. And he says, "Now you're one of us. Isn't she pretty?" This whole time, Jerry has been gnawing on his rope that he's tied to the staircase.
Right.
His mouth gets bloody, which I thought was kind of cool. Like it's really like physically hurting him. And he attacks Davy, and he loses. And Davy does the classic like Jason Voorhees things where he grabs the neck and just like slides him up the wall, and
Yes.
You see how strong that this guy is, which is really cool.
Yes.
Silly but cool. We cut back to Molly, and she's kind of wandering around, and the phone rings. And earlier in the movie, before this all happened, I think it was Becky, or no, maybe it was Eileen, who said, "Can I use your phone?" And he's like, Mr. Sloshin was like, "Sure, but it doesn't work." And he's like, "I ain't got no one to call." So the phone ringing, and Molly picks up the phone to test it and puts it back down. Okay, fine, great.
Right.
So now, an hour later, the phone rings. She picks it up, says hello, doesn't hear anything. And then she looks down, and the wires aren't connected to the wall. So the phone is just connected to nothing. Immediately, I was like, okay, grab the shotgun and load it, because that's still on the wall.
Right.
But no, she's just gonna look back to the creepy wife mannequin again, which lights up, I think, when she leaves.
Yeah, I think so.
And so we cut back to his little basement area where he's working, and he's working on a table, and he accidentally knocks over a key, and it's the key to Jerry's chains.
Right, Jerry is now, instead of tied up with rope, he chains him to the stairs, right?
He chains him to the table underneath where he's
right.
sitting.
Yes.
And he knocks over the key, and Jerry like scoots it over with his boot and tries to get it. Right as he's about to get it, the key floats away, like on the ground, like slides away. And Davy's like, "It's a pretty nice trick, huh?" And that was all a little ploy.
Right.
And then he starts talking about his brother, Mr. Slauson. And he talks about how he was jealous of him, and his brother doesn't like him. He doesn't know about his power that he has, that he can control things. He talks about how good it feels to use his power, and he doesn't want to hide it. And I think eventually he talks about how the brother makes him wear the mask because
he's jealous of his looks, right?
He's jealous of his good looks, and he didn't want his wife to see him because then she would want him. Mm-hmm. Which is, yeah, okay. Sure. So Molly is now wandering outside and going down the staircase to this like dirt path to the house.
Yes.
And Davy pops out with one of the mannequin heads of, I think it was
Woody's, right?
Woody, yeah.
Right.
And just starts chasing her through the forest.
And says, I want to introduce you to my friend, or something about my friend. And he's holding
like,
his head.
Little girl. Yeah, following her, running.
He's holding Woody's mannequin head, and at one point he makes the mouth of this mannequin head open up, and it's this like maw of just like, the thing opens up and it's pitch black, just like the eyes inside the mouth, and it's screaming, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like
it's making noise, it's shouting.
So scary.
Absolutely
it sounds stupid. It sounds really dumb. And I think out of context, you look at this scene and you're like, this is stupid. Mm-hmm. It's really frightening.
It's really scary. Yeah.
I don't know what it is about this.
It is scary. And they do a good job of conveying that. Another thing I want to talk about is the music in this movie. Mm-hmm. God awful, right? God awful.
Yeah.
The music. So one of the like little trivia facts about this was, the director, I guess, hated the score, and he wanted it to be synthy, like John Carpenter's Halloween.
Okay.
But I guess that didn't happen, and for some reason, so. The soundtrack, there's parts of it that sound okay, but then there's parts of it that sound like a circus playhouse music.
Yeah.
But not cool.
No.
It's really weird. And it takes, every time I heard it, it took me right out of the scene because it's just, it's very weird music.
Yeah.
So like when these chase scenes are happening, it should be this really creepy, ominous tones and whatever, but it's just not. So yeah, Molly, yeah.
Some of the scenes where you think music would be, there is no music.
Right.
And there's a lot of silence in this movie too. Or I find it like with older movies, they don't do a good job of like sound effects or like Foley. And a lot of scenes are left with like absolutely nothing. And I guess that adds to the creepiness sometimes. Sometimes it just doesn't work.
It doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is kind of a mixed bag. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I it's so dumb, but I hate sound effects of old movies when it's just terrible. And like doors don't sound like doors and people walking. It's clearly just something else. And it's like this movie suffers from that a lot. At least like the voices, like the people actually sound like they're talking in the scene, which is good, as opposed to I guess. What was it? Was it Velocity? No, it was Uninvited. It sounded all ADR and terrible.
Yeah.
The sound is actually good for at least the vocals. So there's that. So Molly's running through the forest and a truck pulls up and it's Mr. Slauson. And he's like, "What's going on? Calm down." And she's like, "Trying to kill me. This guy's trying to kill me." And he's wearing a mask and he's like, "Oh, that's my brother Davey and he got out. I'm trying to find him." And she's like, "Go to the police." And he's like, "No, we can't do that." And he's like, "Fine, I'll take him to the police, but I have to go get him. I need to get him first. If I go to my museum and play the radio, he always comes back. So I'm gonna go play the radio. He's gonna come back. We'll get him, and then we'll go to the police." Cool. We got the plan set.
Right.
So he goes into the museum and he cocks the shotgun first, gives it to her, and she's like, "I don't know how to use a gun." And he's like, "Just point and shoot. That's all you have to do." And she's like, "Okay." And he goes inside. So he goes inside. There's a long, too long of a silence break here. She's like, "Mr. Slauson, Mr. Slauson." And she's waiting for him. And there's no sound coming from there. Finally, the radio pops up, or the radio starts playing.
She's relieved.
She's very relieved. And then coming from behind her, out of the shadows, is Davey. And she screams and turns around and keeps screaming for this guy. And at this point, I'm like, okay, so this is the scene where they would both be in the scene together. If he comes out, then it's not him. It's either the brother's real or animatronic or something. No one Mr. Slauson does not come out, so like 100% confirmed it's him as he's Davey. So she shoots him twice with the shotgun, which I'm guessing were just blanks, right?
Yes.
He wouldn't give her a loaded shotgun.
Right.
And she then smashes him over the face with the butt of the shotgun.
Yes.
He puts his hands to his face, and you hear like the mask crumpling, and you hear pieces of like ceramic hitting the ground. And he pulls the mask away, and surprise, it's Mr. Slauson.
It's the big reveal, yeah.
And she goes, and she screams, "You!" And that's it. She screams, "You!" and then runs into the forest as he's chasing her. Amazing.
Yeah.
She's running through the forest. She goes into, I think, the same pond from earlier, right? Mm-hmm. Is that the same pond?
I think so,
and she goes into the water, and she's just looking around, and then he just pops up from the water behind her.
Oh, isn't there like a snake too?
There's a snake. There's a snake.
Yeah. The snake scares. A snake scares her first, and then Mr. Slauson pops up. Or, well, it's Davey. Mr. Slauson because he doesn't have the mask on.
He doesn't have the mask on. Yeah.
Right.
So he just pops up out of the water and takes her down.
Yeah.
We cut back to the basement, and Jerry and Becky are still in there. There's like a piece of metal or something on the ground, like a little saw blade.
Yes.
And she kicks it over to him, and he starts sawing on his chains. And then we go up to I think it's maybe the attic, and we see Mr. Slauson and the Davy mannequin sitting at a table, and they're going to eat. And he puts on a different mask, and he starts feeding the mannequin, and that mannequin is moving. Right? The soup scene, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're talking, but he's talking to the mannequin. The mannequin's moving, and he's just controlling it as part of his thing. So
It's so
pausing
weird.
it again.
That scene, that
So weird.
scene was so creepy and weird.
So, is he a master technician, or does he have powers?
I'm saying telekinesis.
That's the only thing that makes sense. There's no way that this dude in 1978 can control all this shit with his, like, without something.
I believe maybe, I'm just guessing on this, on the history of Davey / Mr. Slauson. I'm thinking maybe he's really good at animatronics, but also discovers the powers of telekinesis and goes, I'll combine the two.
Yeah.
And, because I mean, or he's just, maybe it's just telekinesis and that whole thing is faked in the beginning where he shows off his dummies with the Civil War guy. Yeah. In the beginning, you remember? Like,
when he shoots it.
Maybe he's controlling that with his mind.
It's weird. It's very weird. I guess it's better to be left it up, but because I guess, like, you know, nowadays this movie would happen and you would see magnets under the table and the chairs are on a rail system and you would see all the cool stuff like Saw. You know, you'd see all of the machinery.
Right.
And this, they didn't do any of that, probably because they couldn't afford to do that, or they just didn't. It's just they didn't think about it. So, I don't like the fact that it's telekinesis. I don't like magic. I think it would be way cooler if there was machinery and he was a genius who's building all this, and he has some little transmitter that can do stuff, and the transmitter is hooked inside his mask, and that's how he can look at stuff. Like, it'd be really cool to get into any of that. Right. None of that happens. It's just he can control stuff. How is whatever you want it can be. Right. So Molly wakes up in a bed upstairs in a bedroom, and
this was weird.
I think this is actually not the weird part. I think the weird part is after this.
This isn't that person.
Oh, okay. So Mr. Slauson wheels in this woman, the woman that or the mannequin that he was having soup with, and she calls him insane, and he's like, "Don't do that." Also, did you notice at this point that the frame rate of the movie dropped a lot?
Yeah. Okay. I thought it was just my internet connection.
No, I thought it was mine too. I stopped it and reset it, and I looked at it on my phone, and it was just in the movie. The frame rate just drops horribly, and it looks like it's that shitty slow motion that we were talking about before.
Yes. Yeah.
It looks really bad. I don't know what happened. It must have lost some film or something. He talks about how pretty she is and how much he likes her. We cut back to the basement, and Jerry and Becky escape, and they start kind of going through the house. They go through this hallway that's filled with mannequins, and they walk by a room where we see now Davey. He has the mask on. He's playing with dolls, I think, and he's talking to a woman who's sitting there, and it's very weird. And then we get the part I hate, and he comes out of the hallway, and Jerry and Becky freeze and pretend to be mannequins. Yeah. I hate it. There's no way this dude doesn't know exactly what mannequins he has in his house.
Right. Exactly.
These are all people he's murdered. He knows exactly who they are. And these two random people who look exactly like the people he knows from an hour ago. And it's like, oh, this is so dumb.
Also, they don't look like mannequins.
Yes, they look like people.
They look like people that aren't moving.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Yeah.
But it works. The ruse works. And Jerry escapes out of the window. Or gets tossed out of the window, I think, or he jumps out because
he jumps out of the window, and Becky, I don't think she follows him, right?
They separate. Yeah, she climbs out of a separate window and she's running through, and she kind of trips and falls, and then out of the shadows comes Mr. Slauson. Now, she doesn't know that Mr. Slauson is Davy yet, so
Right.
she lets him take her. He takes her back to the museum, and she's walking around, and he's sitting there, and the lights pop on, and the same mannequin who shot the gun before in the beginning shoots again, but now it's a real bullet.
Right.
And the door kind of opens, and she sees the mannequin of Woody, and when she sees that, sitting on the chair in front of Woody is Mr. Slauson laughing like a creep.
Right.
And then he starts this whole gun battle between the Civil War guys and these Native American guys, and they're all shooting real bullets, and bullets are flying, and all this stuff's happening. A Native American mannequin takes a tomahawk and starts throwing it at Becky, misses all of them, and then the last one doesn't miss, and it goes right into her skull.
Yes. Which is a pretty cool scene.
It looks cool.
Yeah.
And blood comes out, and she kind of slides down, and that's it for old Becky.
Now, Becky, the actress who plays her, I figured this out because she looked very familiar. She is, I don't remember her real name, but in
Tanya Roberts.
Tanya Roberts. So that 70s show, she plays one of the moms in that 70s show. I think her name is Midge. But yeah, I was like, she looks very familiar, and that's who she was.
She's very young in this.
Yes.
Probably like 19 or 20 in this.
Yeah.
So we cut back to Molly in the bed. This is the weird scene. So this is where she wakes up, and she's looking at the mannequin that Davy brought in, and now the mannequin is a real person and gives her like some water. And they have like this little back and forth. She kind of blinks and stops. And when she looks back, the mannequin is back to being a mannequin.
Yeah. This scene was unnecessary.
100%.
I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. But
Didn't add anything.
No.
To the movie. All it did was confuse me more, because I don't get why she can now see some as real and some as not.
Right.
I thought maybe, did she put something in the drink that he gave her? I don't know. He takes her up to the attic, and he sits in the chair and watches her, and he pretends to fall asleep. She pretends to fall asleep. She then crawls away on her hands and knees. He immediately opens his eyes and just watches her, and kind of shifts his chair to watch her, which is creepy, but also, look behind you. As she gets closer to the door, all the mannequins start turning and looking at her, and we get more of the singing with their mouths opening, and she's screaming, and she's like, stop, stop, stop.
Is this a scene where we see some mannequins look like humans?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So in this scene, the attic is filled with mannequins, and like you said, some of them are clearly real people pretending to be mannequins. Some are actual mannequins. Now, I want to know why this is happening, because then I can know if I like it or not. Like, if this is what Davy is seeing, then that's really cool, because he sees them as real people.
Right.
If this is what Molly is seeing, it's terrible, because she's not crazy. She has this crazy situation, but she's not crazy. She knows what's real and not. So like, I don't know. I like the idea of it if it's from the point of view of Davy. This is what he sees in his world. That's really cool. And like, later in a moment, he starts dancing with one of the mannequins, and it cuts back and forth between a real mannequin and a real person. And like, I think that works because it shows that I think it shows that he's crazy and he sees these as people, but I don't know. It's just very weird the way they do it.
Yeah. I thought maybe it was like to trick the audience. Maybe. Like you don't know what you're seeing at this point, because it does go by pretty fast. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's very strange.
So Molly is put back on a bed, and Mr. Slauson puts on a mask, a mannequin like face mask that he made of his wife because Molly reminds him of his wife so much, and he puts the mask on and then tries to kiss it, and it's very weird and very uncomfortable. And she's not having any of it, and he's like, "Tell me you love me, tell me you love me," and she says it just to get him to stop.
Right.
And then we get he hears it and it sets something off, and he kind of staggers back, and this is when he talks about how he killed his brother because his brother and his wife were having an affair behind his back.
He says he kills both of them, correct?
He kills both of them, yeah. He killed both of them. Whoring. They were whoring in my own house, he says.
And according to Mr. Slauson, the law says you're allowed to kill people if they cheat on you.
Yeah. He says he's got a legal right to kill them both. He's got a legal right to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure, buddy. Sure. So at this point, I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know. Is he the brother? Is this all bullshit? Is there even a brother? Like, I don't know any of what's real. I think that's cool this part of the not knowing I think is cool because you don't know what the fuck is real and what's not. And it doesn't really matter at this point. He's just this crazy dude. And yeah. So, we hear, Jerry from the outside of the locked door in the attic, and she's like, don't come in. He comes in, he breaks in through like a hole of the door and unlocks it. And Davey is not reacting. He's just standing there letting this happen. And Molly's like, oh, thank God you're here. And she kind of goes behind him and she's like, kill him. And he says, you're going to try and kill me or whatever. And he pulls down. He goes over to what's his name?
Mr.
Jerry.
Slauson? Oh,
Yeah,
Jerry.
he goes over to Jerry and pulls off his arm, and it's a mannequin arm.
Yes.
And then we cut over to Molly, and she looks, and now we see that's actually a mannequin. It wasn't Jerry. Jerry's long gone. And he pulls off the head and smashes it on the ground. And then all the mannequins start freaking out. There's one shot of like a box of mannequin hands.
Yes.
Well, there's one
real
human hand, one real hand that's moving
back and
God,
forth.
paint it white at least, you know? So funny. So this is when he starts dancing with the wife mannequin.
Right.
And this is when it cuts back to a real actress, a mannequin, and Molly's kind of going crazy. She pulls up the axe that Jerry brought in and slams it into Davy's neck.
Yes.
You think that he would have used a prop axe, but sure, didn't. And Davy has the axe and in his neck, and he's just like, and he's kind of stumbling around, and then he collapses onto the ground and dies. Mm-hmm. As soon as he dies, well, it's not the end. This is the best part of this whole movie. We cut to the outside road. There's a vulture.
Wait, hold on. I wanted to show you my note really fast. It says, best ending ever.
This is amazing. So we cut to the road. There's a vulture. We saw this vulture in the beginning. Didn't fucking matter then. Doesn't matter now.
Right. Yeah.
We hear a car, and we see Molly driving... We see Molly driving in the Jeep, which now works, I guess. Down the road, big smile on her face, and in the Jeep are all the mannequins of her dead friends. And it freeze frames on that, and that's the ending of the movie.
Oh my God.
For a good 10-15 seconds, we just linger on this shot, this fucking weird shot, and then the movie and credits, and it's over. Amazing.
Is this an art movie? Like, that's my question. Like, it's, should this be in some sort of like weird museum where they go like, these people wanted to make a scary movie, they sort of did, but
they made a scary concept.
right.
I don't think they delivered on the scary movie. There's definitely scary parts. There's creepy parts. All of the mask design, the design of Davy, really cool. Some of it was so goofy. This ending was so goofy.
Yeah.
If this were me and I was making this movie, I would have, as she's leaving, have one of the mannequin's eyes look at her, and that's the ending shot. Because then it's, ooh, is he still alive? What's going on? Right. You set up your sequel. This just ended in the weirdest fucking way. And I'm gonna post this image on our social media so you can see it. It's so funny, and it's just like, it's insane that this is how they ended the movie. It's crazy.
Yeah, but it
fits though. It fits.
Yeah, and it makes you fall in love with the movie. It's like, yeah, of course, this is the way it ends.
Of course, this is how you end it. Yep.
I was just on a roller coaster of, I don't know what the fuck, and this is the ending. Yeah, this is great. The perfect ending for this type of movie.
Oh man, it was perfect for this movie. It was perfect. It's like I said before. I think if it, I haven't seen Texas Chainsaw in a couple years, but I don't remember any goofy stuff like this, like quite to the same level, right?
No, not at all.
That's a very grounded, fucked up, serious movie.
Yeah,
and that I think is why it's so popular. It's so revered as it is. I can see why this one isn't, because it does have the campy factor.
Yeah,
it does have the silliness, the goofiness, the acting on the most part is not great, and the music is just terrible, and it really like seriously, it ruins the movie to a point, because it's just it's so bad.
Yeah,
any other type of music, if they had done the synthy stuff that they wanted to do, that would have made it so much better, because that would have sounded perfect for this movie. But
definitely.
No. So now the big topic, where do we want to put it on our list?
All right. I was thinking about this. Now, the list so far is...
Yeah, let me read it. Read it.
Yeah.
So, number 1, Velocipaster. Number 2, Uninvited. Number 3, He's Out There.
All right, Gabe.
Hit it with me. Give it to me.
I think this is number 1.
I was thinking the same thing too.
I mean, I really
but we need to talk about it.
Yes, I really love Velocipaster. I really do. But there's something about this movie. I don't. Yeah. I can't.
You can't put your finger on it.
No, I can't.
I agree. I agree.
Like I said in the beginning, this is a movie I would watch right now. If, you know, like it's something. I don't know. There's something
special
about this movie.
There is something special about it.
Yeah.
I think it's because we both love slashers so much. We love that type of movie, and this is that. It is very much a slasher movie.
Yes.
It's a very unique slasher movie, and it's cool. It is unique, and it's not, because it takes ideas from a bunch of other movies and puts it in one thing, which is fine. Like I'm not against that, but even with all of that, it's still great. Like I still loved it. I would totally watch it again. Unlike He's Out There and Uninvited, which I don't really want to watch. I mean, Uninvited I would again, I guess, but not alone.
Right.
Velocipaster and this I would watch alone whenever I just want to watch something fun. So I was also thinking that this would go at number 1 because of everything we just said. I think this, man, between this and Velocipaster, it's tough.
It is. It's very tough. It's very tough. And they couldn't be any different. Like,
Oh, yeah.
they're very different movies.
Very, very different.
Extremely different. But yeah, I think it's number one for me.
I think I'm gonna agree.
Okay.
So number one is Tourist Trap.
Yes.
Number two is Velocipaster. Number three, Uninvited, and number four, He's Out There.
All right. Well, there you go.
There you go. New number one.
New number one. I highly recommend this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But go into it. I wouldn't even say watch the. I mean, we just told you exactly what the movie was about, so I guess you could watch the trailer too. But like, going into this movie not knowing really anything about it,
Yeah.
was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I think
I agree.
It was, yeah. It was
It's fun.
surprise.
It's a fun movie. It's great for watching on your own. If you just want to watch a dumb horror movie, I think it'd be fun to watch with a group of people.
Yeah.
Not now. But once you can be with a group of people, watch it with a group of people, but not now. But yeah, it's a fun movie, and yeah, I would highly recommend it if you're a fan of weird horror or slasher horror, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So next week's movie, so we've been watching a lot of some silly movies, some B-tier movies, some lower end movies, and I think for next week we should go high art.
Super high art.
I think we should go really high horror cinema. Like not even a movie, like a film. We need to pick a horror film.
Yes.
So next week's movie is called Slugs. It's from 1988.
Yes.
The tagline is "Killer slugs on the rampage in a rural community."
Whoa.
So this movie is it's not going to be high art. It's going to be garbage, and I can't wait. It's free on Amazon Prime. It's also on YouTube.
Yeah.
The whole movie's on YouTube for some reason. So so that's great. So no excuse not to watch this movie.
Yes.
And we watched the trailer. Don't remember anything from the trailer. All I know that there's killer slugs, and
Slugs
I can't wait.
everywhere.
Can't wait.
Yeah. So if you want to watch this movie and talk to us about it, send us an email. What's our email, Gabe?
Our email is controlaltdeathpodcast@gmail.com.
You could also give us a call, leave a voice mail for us or a voice message.
Mm-hmm.
And that phone number is...
That phone number is 818-457-6887.
Yes.
So if you want to watch the movie and give us your thoughts, or give us your thoughts on any of the movies we watched,
sure.
I would love to hear what you guys think about anything we've watched. We'll read it on the show. If you leave a voicemail, we'll play it on the show. Give us your thoughts on the movie, your recommendations on what we should watch. Anything you want to talk about. You want to talk about Tiger King or Animal Crossing?
Yeah, sure.
Are you building a Tiger King in your Animal Crossing?
Gabe, I just wanted to let you know that I just got tiger print flooring for my house.
So you're the Tiger King.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I am very curious to see and to hear what people thought of this movie.
Yeah. Me too.
Because I think it takes a certain type of person to like this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah.
I agree. I think right off the bat I knew that I was gonna love this movie, and I knew that you loved it. So I knew that for people like us who like the exact type of movies that we're watching, we were gonna love it. For people who don't like that, I don't know what they're gonna think. I want people to watch it, whether you think you're gonna like it or not, because I really want to know what you think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I do think it's not everyone's cup of tea.
Right.
For sure. So yeah, I
So
think that's about it.
that does it for this episode. Thank you for listening. And don't be a dingus.
Don't be a dingus.
Don't be a dingus.